Our next speaker is no stranger to us. We have always supported him. So I'm going to ask our Vice President, Elsie Goffard, to introduce him.
Thank you, everybody. In 1993, Tim married the Lowen's wife, Rowena. A young widow raising 2 boys and her own. Together they have 5 sons and 1 grandson. During all their boys' teenage years, Tim coached soccer for a dozen of years, sometimes coaching multiple times. Starting in 2002, Tim began working in prison ministry, taking the lead after his mentor passed away, teaching the men of the Fire Rock Country Bible study and life skills courses for almost 8 years. In 2005, Tim answered the call to this country and joined the fight to secure our borders. As the founder of the largest Minuteman chapter in California, he leveraged the media to bring national attention to the federal government's failure to enforce the border. Since then, Congress voted against amnesty to improve the border fence and double the border patrol presence. The American public is acutely aware of the drug war, which has claimed over 40,000 lives in 4 years, and the violence that has spilled over the border into California. In 2010, Tim became a candidate for the California Republican Assembly. He joined a field of 10 candidates. Tim ran a strong grassroots campaign, knocking on thousands of doors through his district. Despite being outspent by significant amounts, Tim prevailed on election day. Later that year, he was sworn in as a member of the Assembly. In the legislature, Tim has earned the reputation of a conservative who holds still fast to the beliefs pro-jobs policies, low taxes, public safety, and protecting of the Second Amendment. In addition, Tim led the fight to repeal AB 131, the California DREAM Act, which provides illegal immigrants with college scholarships funded by taxpayers' dollars. Tim traveled through the state, speaking directly with voters about the issue and receiving a strong grassroots support. Overall, the statewide effort included over 10,000 volunteers, wow, and collected 450,000 signatures. Recently, Tim successfully highlighted the neglected issue of human trafficking by being the author of the legislation to designate every February 1st as a Freedom from Slavery and each January as a National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. By the way, I myself want to be very much involved into that because the supervisors of San Mateo County have appointed me to be a commissioner of the status of the women. So I'm going to be very much involved into all those issues regarding women. So I really, really appreciate what Tim has been doing. Tim is blessed to live in the scenic San Bernardino Mountains with his beautiful, wonderful wife, Rowena, his 5 sons and 1 grandson. Please help me to welcome Tim with a big applause. Thank you.
I think she deserves that round of applause for having to read that thing. We need to edit that thing down. There's no time to give a speech now. Wow. You know what a blessing it is to be here. To be be surrounded by people who care so much about their country, who care about freedom, and who are unashamed to stand up for that which the founders pledged all. And, you know, we hear a lot of talk nowadays about the path to victory. We hear about how the Republican Party can rebuild itself by selling out everything it believes in. You know, I have to scratch my head and search the history books, and that includes Google, and so far I have never found a single example where the pathway to victory was to give up the keys to victory. Never before in history, period, has so much power been given away without a fight to so few. We have the exact predicament that the founders feared, which is why they created the shackles of the Constitution. But that's been cast aside. And we now have dictators all across this country who tell us what to do. And if you don't believe that, all you have to do is take one trip to New York City. And if you happen to try to buy a soda of the size that you choose, you're a criminal. If you're selling that 16-ounce soda in the city of New York, you could go to jail. God help you if you carry your gun into the New York airport, like Mark Meckler did. You'll never get out. In California, they have plans for you. How many of y'all like sweet tea? Get over it. There's going to be a 1 cent per ounce tax on sweet tea. You know, I was visiting my hospital the other day in Big Bear Lake, and I was getting this fantastic tour, and the lady was showing me this special bathtub. They have this elevator that lifts patients in so they can get a bath, because one of the worst things in the world, first of all, is to be in the hospital, but second of all, to not be able to care for yourself. It's so hard to clean a person and just maintain their dignity. And I was so impressed with it. And then they told me, oh yeah, and the state mandates the exact temperature of the water. Just think about that for a second. Because we're so used to hearing these horror stories, but I want you to understand something very, very clearly. Your government does not trust you. I happened to go to a Starbucks today, and there was a girl outside who was talking to another girl, and they were talking about healthcare. They were talking about, they're both nurses, and they were talking passionately about some patient issue of really caring for a human being. I trust them a lot more than I trust Harry Reid or Nancy Pelosi or Barack Obama or anyone. I trust the people who are out there on the front lines. And so did our founders. They trusted us. You might say, well, why are you talking about that? What difference does it make? This is 2013. Well, this is the question. The question of the 2014 election, and the question of every election from now until I pass off this earth, from now until every one of you passes off this earth, is whether or not we are going to hand down a birthright of freedom, or whether we are going to pass on to the young people a country that our grandparents wouldn't recognize. A country where the government controls you. And How many of you have been paying attention to the Second Amendment fight? How many of you in here love guns? Okay, about half of you. Well, guess what? That fight is not about guns. Doesn't matter how you feel about guns. It matters whether or not you value freedom. Because the Second Amendment was brought into being to defend freedom from tyranny. Simple as that. And if you don't believe it, then you need to pick up the history books. You know the encyclopedia set would do, because they haven't changed the facts yet. Because it's on your shelf in print. Do you remember how you felt as a young person in school when you studied what Hitler did? Because that guy was a maniacal genius. I had lunch yesterday with someone who grew up in Germany. And his father told him stories. His father passed away last year. And his father said, the United States is headed down the exact same path as Germany. I have given speeches in tea parties. And as a political candidate, I don't call myself a politician because I hate politicians. Because I think we can do a lot better. I think we can elect statesmen. I think we should elect patriots. Because patriots will put the country first. They will put the Constitution first. But when I listen to him talk about his father, and talk about what was, and when you see it happening right before your very eyes, and as I've spoken around the state, at one tea party I got interrupted. And this woman was so emotional. And I thought, you know what? Something is really on her heart. So you're not supposed to allow somebody to interrupt your speech and then give them the floor. But I did. And I'm really grateful I did. Because she told a heart-wrenching story in about 3 minutes of growing up in Czechoslovakia. And she talked, and she wept. She said, I'm watching it happen before my very eyes. You know, every one of you is probably familiar with Agenda 21. Yeah. I used to roll my eyes when I heard that. I didn't understand what was truly at stake. But when people take a global governance document and try to impose it on what was once a free people, and those people do not resist, then those people are no longer free.
That's right.
And I just had information transmitted to me yesterday that Agenda 21 is now being pushed through the capital markets. Well, most people might think, well, what does the capital market really have to do with me? You know, because maybe you're on the same boat as I am. You know, started out with a 401k, about 10 years ago, and you know, about 2 years ago it was a 201k, and then it was a 101k for a little while, and now it's just a 0k. And you know what? That's not okay. But they literally are pushing their agenda. They're pushing it, and it's a broad agenda. Okay, I'll give you one example. You've heard of General Electric. Capital no longer wants to loan money to gun stores or anyone buying a gun. Bank of America's already done that. Wells Fargo. So you have all the government-dependent banks who are pushing a political agenda. I'm sorry, that's not freedom. And they're not just doing it by themselves, they're doing it because it's part of a movement now. They can't win at the ballot box with these insane ideas because free people do not want to be controlled by their government, no matter how well-intentioned it is.
That's right.
But they're doing it. And they're pushing it through the water policy. And they're taking, if you've seen the Dick Morris video, they're taking the cap and trade money, and that money, that is an illegal tax. That's what that really is. And it is a confiscation of capital. And they're taking that capital and they're using that to advance this agenda by barring up rural property and farmland that have water rights, and then they take the water and they siphon it off and sell it to a water company in a city, in an urban area, because they want you to live in an urban area. And if you don't believe that, one of the members of a committee just this past month admitted it right up there. He said, we're passing laws to get you people off the farmland. You're not supposed to live there. Now, what was he doing? He was defending the policy of a municipality buying a farm right next to a water treatment plant and turning it into a sewage waste plant. They were dumping sewage onto farmland and calling it farming. Now, if they built a factory there and tried to make products, oh, good Lord, if they tried to make firearms, can you imagine the outcry? Because you can't put a business, a manufacturing business, on land that was zoned for farming. But they want to put a sewage treatment plant there. And the people rose up against it. They went to court. They were defeated by these idiot judges who don't believe in local control. So then they took it to the ballot box, and they ran a ballot measure, and 83% of the people voted in favor of it. And then the judges struck it down again. Are you starting to see? We have lost control of our government at every level. But there's something that we can do. There's a lot of people.
Lock and load.
Somebody speaking my language. You know, there's a lot of, because behind every great patriot, you must absolutely be willing to defend your freedom.
Amen.
Period. But God made us a peace-loving people. And you know, there's an old saying from a long time ago, speak softly and carry a big stick. And I believe in that. But I'm going to tell you something else. There is hope for this state. Because they have gone so far, they have overreached so far, that when I go out and talk to business owners, who are, by the way, the new Tea Party, I'm talking business owners that own 3 jets. They say, I'll say government, and then I have to duck. Because they come back at me with out of control. It's too many regulations. I'm sick and tired. And I can't even get a second word out. I had lunch with one fellow. As a matter of fact, I had water with him. We never got to lunch. It was a 45-minute conversation, and he started out like this. And this fellow is a donor to the Republican Party that gave $80,000 to the party. And his first question to me was, where do you stand with the Republican establishment? And I said, they don't like me. And he said, what's your plan? And I said, my plan is to do the opposite of everything they've done. He said, good, because all they've done is lose for the last 2 decades.
Yes, that's all they gotta do.
And I said, all I've ever done is won. And he said, how much can I write you a check for? I wasn't expecting that, but I was armed and I had an envelope. And I said, $27,200, and if you're going to write it for that, you have to put a comma between the 27 and the 2. He said, okay, what else can I do? And he told me some things, but what was most interesting is we talked about why he doesn't move to Texas. He said, Governor Perry, I had 3 conversations with him this week. He sent me a little wooden box. It's a walnut box, a beautiful box. And inside it is a cell phone, and the cell phone has one number programmed into it. And he said, you know, I did go to Texas. I met with the governor, and I bought 600 acres. Now, mind you, let me tell you how much he paid in state income tax last year. State income tax, he paid $500,000. Divide that out, multiply it out, you figure at about a 10% rate before Prop 30, this guy was making over $5 million a year. He has hundreds and hundreds of employees. He owns hundreds of thousands of square feet around an airport. And he said, I'm not leaving yet. I can handle the taxes. I can put up with the regulations. I just hired a new employee, by the way, not a salesman for my product, but a compliance officer to keep the government off my back. That is a confiscation of capital right there, if there ever was one.
Amen.
That is the anti-growth that could be easily reversed if we took another course. But he said, you know, he said, the reason that I haven't left yet, and the reason that I will leave, and I will leave in a heartbeat, is if they decimate the Second Amendment. The minute they decimate the Second Amendment, I'm out of here, because I can no longer defend my family, my faith, my freedom. And so when people say we shouldn't talk about social issues, and I don't know if the Second Amendment is a social issue or not.
Yeah.
It just was part of my society growing up. But I can tell you this, the pathway to victory in California, the pathway to victory in the United States is very simple. Elections, when you boil them down, are about money, message, and media. But more importantly, they're about connecting. They're about connecting on a human level. So when we look back at history, we want candidates who will stand up and take strong positions on issues that have strong crossover. The assault on the Second Amendment sets me up as the most powerful candidate for the governorship in 2014 in the state of California. I don't have to utter a single word about illegal immigration. All they're going to do all day long and twice on Sunday is they're going to run ads, News at 11, Donnelly versus so-and-so, the Minuteman. And you know what? They try to make that into a bad word. I'm not ashamed of what I did at the border. I had a CNN guy interview me, and he says, well, what if they get a hold of pictures of you at the border? I said, you know what? I'm proud of what I did. I stood against tyranny in 2 countries. You know that, you want to know the saddest thing about my bio? Is the number of people who have died in the drug cartel war. When we wrote that 2 years ago, it was 40,000. Now they can't even keep count. It's between 70 and 100,000 human beings have lost their lives, and Barack Obama has done nothing except send guns down there that killed one of our agents. So when it comes to the question of illegal immigration, I think we need to tell people something very simple. I do think we need to change our messaging. I think we ought to be for things. We ought to talk about what we love. I love this country. I got chills when I heard the story of the young man who did the pledge. Did you? I want more immigrants here. I think we ought to give an amnesty to those who are willing to wait in that long line to get permission to come here and then become citizens. That's where we ought to start. We ought to align our motivations with what we want. We ought to tell the people who are here illegally, you know what? We want you here. But we have one process. And if we didn't, then we become like the place that you're fleeing, where the breakdown of the rule of law has led to anarchy. And so I am here to stand, not only to stand up for the rule of law, I'm here to stand for you. I want you to come here and be a full participant. I want you to be my brother or sister in this great endeavor to live free. If you're willing to make whatever sacrifice is required to get here, not only will I encourage you and support you, I will sponsor you. Now think about that message. Because you know what it is? It's the truth. And do you remember how you felt the day that Mitt Romney made the 47% comment? That was the first day I liked him.
Yeah.
You know when he lost the election? The next day. If I was Mitt Romney, try to picture it. I got a lot of hair and $1 billion. It's not that hard, come on. I would have walked up to that microphone knowing that every single camera in the free world is on it. Knowing that I will have 3 to 4 minutes of unfiltered access to the hearts and minds and souls of the American people. I would have walked up there and I would have said, ladies and gentlemen, and then I would have taken my suit off. I would have undone my tie and taken it off. And I would have rolled up my sleeves and I would have said, I just fired all of my consultants. They wanted me to come here and apologize.
Right on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that 47% of the people in this country don't believe in the American dream.
You would have won.
I'm sorry that something has gone so horribly awry that there are people fighting and willing to risk their lives to get to this country just to live free just for the opportunity to breathe air, where they don't have a government dictating their every choice. And I don't know what it's going to take to reach their hearts. But you know, those of you who are in that 47%, when you look in the mirror in the morning, you know you're capable of more. You have a hard time looking yourself in the eye, don't you? I want to help you. But right now, you're living under dependence to the government. Yeah, you have a guaranteed paycheck. But you died a long time ago, deep down inside. And I want to fight for your soul, not for your guaranteed paycheck. I cannot guarantee you a living. But I will fight for you to have the same opportunity that others are willing to die for. What do you say? Are you in it? Are you ready for a second chance? Who will help me rebuild this country and set this country afire with the American spirit? We are a can-do country. There is no problem we can't solve. We have a different president. But you know what? That's my speech for this state. We can do this. But I can't do this alone. And right now, you're probably thinking I'm going to ask you for money. And you're right. But that's not all I'm going to ask you for. I am going to ask you to get one of these envelopes from me because I want to be connected to you. I want not only you to write me a check, and if you do write it for $27,200, you can put a comment in between the two. But I didn't get here with those kind of checks. I got elected with $5 and $10 and $100 contributions. I got elected because people were on their knees praying. By the time I won my election by 1 vote per precinct, there were more people praying than ever voted for me. And right now, what is at stake is not whether or not Tim Donnelly or Abel Maldonado or anybody else is going to be governor of this state. What is at stake is whether or not the freedom that was fought for in the American Revolution and every war since is going to be handed over to tyrants, or whether we are going to seize back the power that was given to us by the Creator, that we lent to them. And whether or not we are going to rebrand our party from the party that everybody hates to the party that everybody wants to join.
Yeah, there we go.
Because you know what? While we are taking back our freedom, we're going to have a good time. Because we are happy warriors. And because we know that the ultimate fate is in His hands.
Amen.
And not ours. And so I would ask you to join me in this great endeavor you know, if all you can do is write a check, I want you to do that. But there's a lot more that you can do. Some of you are Facebook warriors. Some of you will man precincts and walk door to door. Some of you in the past have gathered signatures for petitions. Wouldn't it be great if we had something on the ballot to protect Prop 13? We could sure get all the, not just the building owners, but the tenants, because they're going to split it, they're going to go after the commercial. Well, that includes apartment buildings. There's an awful lot of people in those apartment buildings, and every one of them knows that bill is going to get passed on to them. And that turned out 80% of the vote when Prop 13 was on the ballot. So there's all kinds of ways we can win this. But every one of them involves your help. And not just your help, but the help of your friends. And more important than anything else, your prayers. So I thank you for all of the work that you have done. And I thank you for all of the work you're about to do to make absolutely certain that starting in the state of California, that we pass on to our children and grandchildren the freest, greatest, and most prosperous state in the Union. God bless you and Godspeed.